So tonight we are going to go through. I'm building on last week's masterclass call. Now I know there was only a handful of you on there. Um, but what I'm going to do is build on it in a way that we're going to sort of go over the key points from last week's call. I have now, I had to edit it quite a bit, so that's why it's taken me a while. I've now edited it and it will be live tomorrow, and this will also be live tomorrow. So you'll be able to watch last week's in full, but this will still make sense to you. So last week we were talking about midlife muscle code was the name of the masterclass. We're sort of talking about what muscle is, what muscle does, why it's important, and I'm going to recap on that now. But then we're going to build on that as well. So as I sort of said in my message earlier, when I'm talking to people external, when I'm doing these masterclasses, I'm only really telling them the wow, the kind of the what. But when I work with you guys, I tell you the how. So I think that's like a nice sort of like they get a little bit of it, but they don't get the answers that you guys get inside the program. So we're going to go over that tonight. So where should I start? Where should I start? Where should I start? Yes, ladies, at your request of doing presentation slides, I still haven't got around to doing presentation slides, so bear with me on that one. I need a format that I can just repeat each week. That's going to make it a bit easier for me. My brain just doesn't yeah, it takes a long time to do stuff like that. But yes, so I think the biggest thing about last week, which I think some of you will agree with that were on the call, is that it's almost sort of like reframing muscle completely as to what it is, and not seeing muscle as something that is purely aesthetic. And that it is actually something that is super protective. It is so key. I want to layer that context into each piece that we're going to go through now so you fully understand why this matters and why it matters so much during menopause. So, you would have heard me say this before, you may have heard other people say this, but muscle is metabolically active. It's our metabolic engine, if you like. That means that it burns energy at rest. Now, not thousands and thousands of calories whilst we sleep, because that'd be great. We just sleep a lot more. Wait, that would be amazing. How do you lose weight? We just sleep. Um, but meaningfully over time. So, more importantly, muscle is your largest glucose disposal site. Okay, so after you eat carbohydrates, your muscles absorb the glucose from the bloodstream. So, less muscle equals poorer blood sugar control. Okay, poor blood sugar control will lead to higher circulating insulin, and chronically elevated insulin would lead to greater fat storage, especially the central fat storage that we see more commonly during midlife. So this is one reason belly fat becomes more common in menopause. Okay, muscle is a buffer. We want that buffer to be there. We want to keep it big and strong. So muscle is also your insulin sensitivity regulator. Okay, so as estrogen declines, I feel like that's probably the common thing I would say the most ever. As estrogen declines, insulin sensitivity often decreases for most people. Now, strength training can improve insulin sensitivity, and research consistently shows that resistance training improves glucose control independent of fat loss. Okay. So when we build muscle, we're improving how our body processes food. Does that make sense? Do you want to, I can recap over that a little bit, but basically, the more muscle we have, the better we're going to be processing these carbohydrates into the, like when it releases the glucose into the bloodstream, we're going to be processing it much better. So muscle is so much more important than aesthetic. Okay. It is also, and I know this was a light bulb moment for quite a few people that I spoke to post call last week. Muscle is your bone density protector, if you like. Quite often we don't make this connection. Um, but muscle attaches to your bones, right? By ligaments, okay? It's attached to your bones. So when your muscles contract under load, they pull on the bone. So if you think you've got muscle either side, say you've got your knee in the middle, you've got ligaments attaching, and then when those muscles are pulling, they're putting tension through the muscles, and that's going to pull and load onto the bone as well. And that mechanical stress stimulates your bone remodeling underneath. So that sort of impact and pull on the bone is what helps the bone get denser. So in menopause, when estrogen declines and accelerates, bone density is lost, okay? It reduces. And resistance training increases osteoblast activity, which is the little cells that are responsible for bone formation. Cardio does not do this, okay? Or it doesn't do it well anyway. The best way to do this is through strength training, increasing load over time. So it absolutely makes sense when we look at, I think I was saying last week about, I mean, we all know someone with osteoporosis, whether it's a friend, a mum, an auntie, an uncle, whatever. Quite often we're talking about this as we chapter through life. So if we think about the fact that our muscle is reducing, then we have less muscle pulling on the bone, then it makes absolute sense that those bones are not becoming weaker but they're not being strengthened. Okay, so if we can keep building our muscle, we're going to keep our bones building density. Now, muscle is also a joint stabilizer, right? So we all got who's got achy joints here? I'm sure like everyone's got some kind of achy joints, and it probably happened overnight in our early mid 40s or towards the late of our 40s. Don't know what happened. All of a sudden we can't get up off the floor, everything aches. Um, so as we age, our connective tissue becomes less elastic. You would have heard people talk about collagen production declining, right? That's why we're all having these collagen powders. Let's hope they do something because they cost a fortune. And recovery slows as well. So stronger muscles will help us stabilize those joints. And the stronger muscles will help reduce shear force. So when we've got an impact, the muscle is going to help control that. Muscles help improve alignment around joints as well. And muscles help reduce injury risk around joints specifically because they are stabilizing the joints. And quite often you will find things like I've said to many of you on here that have had knee or lower back issues, if we've got achy knees, the first thing I'm going to look at is your glutes. Okay, so your glute is your biggest muscle in your body. And if that muscle is sitting above your hip joint and sitting above your knee joint, and you've got knee pain or hip pain, the first thing I'm going to do is look at your glutes. How do we strengthen those glutes? Because that is the muscle that is looking after those joints. Same with quads, same with hamstrings, same with posterior chain work with our lower back, connecting round into our core. So muscle is also your fall prevention strategy, okay? Loss of muscle mass and strength is one of the biggest predictors of falls later in life, right? We're not. There was a hot one. Actually, I'm not going to say that. There was an influencer on Instagram saying that if you, what was she saying? If you fall and break a bone over 60, 70, you're likely to die within 6 months. I mean, it was the most ridiculous stat that she threw out there. I don't know why I'm just showing you if it just popped into my mind. But it's, we don't need to think about it as that extreme, but the more muscle we have, the more it is likely that we are not going to suffer from falls later in life. Okay, it just makes sense. Lower body strength is directly linked to independence. And I know when I spoke to many of you ladies when you first joined, we talk about future proofing, right? We talk about being able to get ourselves out of a chair in 20 years' time. We also talk about getting strong AF right now, but we're also very much looking at independence, being able to sit to stand, right? And we can actually measure sit to stand strength as well. We want to be able to climb stairs. I mean, God, I know, and I don't mean for feeling struggling to climb stairs after you've done lower body workout. I mean, struggling to climb stairs because we don't have the strength. We're too fragile. We don't have the muscular control. We don't have the core control. Um, so when we're training our muscle, we are very much training for the future, for our future self, right? Now, muscle is also our longevity insurance. So higher lean muscle mass is consistently associated with lower all-cause mortality, with reduced cardiovascular risk, and with lower frailty risk. So muscle is very much a protective tissue, ladies. So when I'm banging on about strength training, and I know that's why you're all here, so that's great because you're all inside the program already. You've made the most important step. But muscle is not about aesthetics. It's not about, I do not worry about looking too bulky, getting too muscular, because first of all, you'd have to train 7 days a week and be in a huge surplus to turn into a bodybuilder. But secondly, why would you not want to use muscle in a way that can improve all of these things that I've just spoken about? It's absolutely magical. It's not cosmetic. And it also supports cognitive function, right? So resistance training has been shown to improve executive function, memory, and processing speed, likely via improved insulin sensitivity, because we know that supports it, reduced inflammation, and increased, oh God, I can't remember what it's called. My brain, I've got brain fog. Funnily enough, that's what I'm talking about. I'll have to come back to you on that one. But basically, it affects your brain, cognitive function. I clearly haven't done enough reps today. Um, Muscle is also your hormonal buffer. Okay, so in menopause, our stress load increases, right? Whose stress load feels like it's increasing? Menopause, midlife in general. Um, Muscle can help blood sugar, it can help inflammation, it can help stress response. It's always going to come back to these things, always. It improves resilience physically and metabolically. So when we train muscle, we are not chasing aesthetics. That's not what we're here for. We're building metabolic protection for our future, for our long-term independence. That's why we're here. Now, that's a little bit of a recap on what we went through on the call last week. But what I want to talk about now are a few other parts to this. So I want to talk through how muscle actually grows. Um, and that's actually quite simple. Some of you will know this, many of you know this already because I've spoken about it before in past trainings. But your body is basically constantly breaking muscle down and rebuilding it. Okay, and training tips that balance. So when we lift weights, we create tiny amounts of stress in the muscle, and your body then repairs that muscle using the protein that you eat. Hence, me banging on, and every other fitness coach and mentor banging on about eating more protein. Um, your body then, it simply can't repair it without the protein that you're eating. So if we've trained hard enough, right, and this is the important bit, if we've trained hard enough and we've eaten and recovered properly, your body doesn't just repair it, it rebuilds it slightly stronger. So that's how muscle grows. We tear and we repair. If it's been challenged enough when it has that resistance and that tear, it will repair it stronger. And that is why over time, if it just teared and repaired, tore and report, teared and repaired, that sounds a bit wrong. Teared and repaired. It would just come back the same size, right? So the important part there isn't just about tearing it and repairing it, tearing it and repairing it. It's about tearing it in a way that you have almost like made that gap bigger, yeah, and then it repairs bigger. So if we start off here, don't really know what I'm trying to do here. If we start off here and we make this little hole, but then maybe our muscles like this, and then we tear a hole that's like this big, it's going to grow to this big. Then we tear a hole that's this big, and we grow to this big. So it's just going to keep getting bigger, 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 bigger. Um, yeah, that's muscle growth basically. So here's the key part that I want you to remember. Muscle only grows if we give it a strong enough reason to. That reason is tension. Okay. And tension just means that the muscle is working hard against resistance. And your body has a very clever system. It doesn't use all of your muscle fibers at once. If something feels easy, it only uses the smaller muscle fibers, the lower powered fibers. Okay. If something feels hard, it starts recruiting the bigger, more powerful fibers within that muscle. And those bigger, more powerful fibers are the ones with the most growth potential. So how do we make sure we recruit those bigger muscle fibers? Yeah, there's two ways. We either lift something heavy or we lift something lighter, but take it close enough to the point where we always couldn't do another rep. So more reps, right, with a lighter weight. That's why effort matters more than the rep number. And I'm going to talk to you about reps in a bit more in a moment. It's not about doing 8 reps instead of 12. It's about how close you are to your limit. Okay. Before we go on to reps, I want to talk through the 4 pillars of adaptation. And I touched on these in the call last week. There are 4 main keys to adaptation. So changing how our muscles are, building bigger muscles, basically. Number 1 is mechanical tension. I'm going to go through these in a moment. Number 2 is proximity to failure, as I was just talking about. Number 3 is progressive overload. You should all know that word. If you've been in the program for more than 2 hours, I expect you to know what progressive overload is. And number 4, does anyone want to have a guess what number 4 is with the importance of building muscle? Does anyone want to unmute and shout out? So we've got all the stimulus. So we've got mechanical, we've got tension, we've got proximity to failure. So that's like, when we're looking at a 2 rep max kind of thing, we're looking
Is
at
it rest?
Huh?
Is it rest?
It is. Da, 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 da. Well, okay, recovery, rest and recovery. Absolutely. That is the 4th pillar. Okay, so we've got mechanical tension, working close to failure, progressive overload, and recovery, rest/rest. If one is missing, adaptation will stall. And this is why we have a deload every week. This is why I tell you to take your rest days seriously and all that jazz. So let's go a bit deeper into what actually determines stimulus inside your sessions. I think it was Kerry actually that asked last week after the call, like, what does good stimulus look like? So we're going to go through what actually creates the right training stimulus. Okay. Most of this is going to be stuff that you guys are familiar with. We're just going to unpack it a little bit more. So stimulus is influenced by a number of things. Okay. We're looking at load. So how much you are lifting, the load. We're looking at reps. So repetition, how many times we're lifting it. We're looking at sets. We're looking at rest within our training, not globally as in training days, but rest within our training. So when we are training in the gym or at home. We're looking at tempo, the time that we are taking to take our movement. We're looking at range of motion or range of movement, full range of movement. Proximity to failure, as I just mentioned, and exercise selection. Okay, so I'm going to go through these things now. Oh, this would have been a really good one for slides. Maybe I should put some slides together and drop them over to you guys afterwards. Okay, so first up, we've got load. Okay, heavier loads recruit high threshold motor units early in the set. So lighter loads, recruit them later if you go close enough to failure. Both can build muscle. The difference is fatigue profile and efficiency. So the heavier we load, the more of those, I was talking about the different types of muscle fibers, we're going to recruit those bigger ones earlier on. And that's gonna majority of the time that's gonna bring us a better result. Now, rep range. Again, everyone on this call should know what rep range is. Um, Now, research shows that hypertrophy, as some people pronounce it, is basically when your muscles get bigger because they've adapted to resistance training. So that's all it means. And it can occur anywhere between 5 to 30 reps, provided those sets are close enough to failure. So the rep range influences load, fatigue, joint comfort, and efficiency. The rep range does not switch a magic button to flip your muscle to turn on. We can choose rep ranges to manage stimulus to fatigue ratio. So it's a bit of a what suits you best kind of scenario when it comes to rep range. And I can't remember if I've got a note to talk about this again later, but it's a bit of a personal preference. So if you work in a lower rep range, okay, so for some of you, I might be putting you on like 4 to 6, and we might be going really heavy for 4 to 6 reps. That will only be when you're really confident and competent at a movement. You know how to engage, and I'm confident that you can go to the heavier weight, lower rep range and get everything that you need out of those lifts. The reason I tend to start most of you on a higher rep range and a slightly lighter weight is because when we are learning movements, or introducing new movements into a new phase, if you do more reps of something, you have more time to perfect your technique, right? If you're only doing 4 to 6 reps, you might not even woken up your glutes yet, you know? So, especially when we're working more at the beginning of our training or at the beginning of a phase or coming back from injury, we will work in a higher rep range. The science nowadays isn't really saying there's much difference. You speak to the big dogs talking about this, any of the top sort of coaches, um, your Hubermans, your Stacey Sims, your whoever it is that you guys listen to. There's so many others out there I can't think of at the moment. Hormozy, oh, so many people that you could, the top people in this arena. They're really not talking about there being much difference or reason to go one way or the other when it comes to rep ranges. It's personal preference, and I think it was Stacey Sims, Dr. Sims, that was talking the other day about, if you're lifting a heavy, if you've moved on to like really heavy squat loading, no one wants to do 14 reps of a heavy squat. Like, give me three to 6 reps on a set and get me out of there. And same with hip thrust. But some people might really like doing hip thrust, and they might go a bit lighter and do more repetitions. It really does start to come down to personal preference. If you're in a bodybuilding thing, that's a different thing. Like, this is what we're talking about here, and just like longevity protection, future proofing, building muscles. It's a personal preference, and when it comes to time, as in terms of your training time, how long you have to train. If you go heavy and lower reps, you've got to have longer rest period. And if you go higher and lighter weights, then you're going to have less rest period. So they kind of even each other out in the wash, really, to be honest. Now, when we look at sets and volume, so volume equaling the number of hard sets close to failure. So when we're looking at volume, like that, like how many hard sets can we do close to failure? Quality matters more than quantity. Okay. I was in a class today actually because I've joined a gym just to go and meet some people because I'm in Dorsetdale, and I moved to a new town. And there was girls in the same doing similar lifts to me, and they were going as fast as they could through these lat pull downs. They were on the same weight as me to start off with. They had to go down. I didn't after a while, but they were rushing through these reps, right? Dun, 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 dun. And what was doing most of the work was the momentum, the bounce, whereas if you slow right down and focus on quality over quantity, and I'll talk about tempo again in a minute. It's so much more important. Quality over quantity every time you are lifting. Form is more important than speed. Um, Range of motion and movement, I'm going to talk about as well in a moment, is more important than cheating yourself, maybe not going all the way down in a squat. You're better off taking the lighter weight, getting full depth on a squat than you are taking a heavier weight and only being able to sort of, I don't know, half hinge. Now, when we took look at rest periods, we know that rest directly affects stimulus. So short rest will reduce your outputs, it will limit your load, and it will increase your fatigue. So when I put in 60 seconds, 1 minute 30, whatever it is into your rest in your app for your programming, it's there for a reason. And if you're not needing it, I'd question whether you're working in the right sort of level of exertion in your training. Now, longer rest times, 2 to 3 minutes, which is what we tend to put in when we're lifting heavier loads and shorter reps. They preserve your force production, they maintain your mechanical tension, and they help improve the outcome longer term. So, research consistently shows that longer periods, rest periods, produce greater growth compared to 30 to 60 second rest when we're lifting heavy. So rest is absolutely strategic and essential, not just to your weeks and to your days, but to your sessions. So when you are in training. Now, tempo. So many of you, well, all of you will have seen tempos set in your exercises. This is the numbers that also often appear under the name of your exercise, um, broken down into four components. So you'll often have like 1, 3, 1, 1, for example, and that would be seconds. So for a squat, for example, you might have 3, 1, 1, 1. So that would be 3 seconds on the way down, 1 second at the bottom, 1 second up, and 1 second at the top. There is no magical tempo. Some people will even say that it doesn't make much difference. But the reason I focus on tempo with you guys is because, again, like the higher rep range, it gives you time to think about engagement. And the more our brain can connect to our muscle, the better connection we're going to have. But absolutely, if you are bouncing through a squat like you're in a body pump class, you are not going to be putting your muscle under the right level of tension to get the right level of fatigue, to get the right level of growth. So check your tempo. Not every single movement will have tempo, but check your tempo and listen and adhere to it. And we play around with tempo as well. So I mean, there's no magic number, but we can play around with it absolutely. And some of you would have had me putting in longer periods at the bottom of a hold to build up your strength to go up to the next weight. So sometimes if there's too big a jump, maybe on a bench press, dumbbell bench press, for example, if going up the next kgs that feel a bit too heavy, I might get you to hold the tempo at the bottom of the movement, hold it for 3, 4, 5 seconds, and then drive out of it. And that helps you increase your ability as well. Now, another thing is range of motion. This is hugely important, okay? Training at longer muscle lengths under load has been shown in recent research to produce greater muscle growth in many cases. So we want to lengthen the muscle and keep it under tension. Deep squats, for example, stimulate more glute and quad growth than shallow squats. Full stretch in RDLs, okay, increases hamstring stimulus. So if we're pushing those hips all the way back in an RDL, if you've got no idea what an RDL is, do not worry, you will learn very soon. Deeper lunges. Yes, when we start lunging, we can't, for many of us, get our knee near close to the floor or anywhere near it. Um, but over time, that will improve and you'll be increasing your muscle recruitment as you do that. So we are not just looking at reps, we are also looking at full range of movement. It is so important. Um, then I want to look at proximity to failure. So I mentioned this a moment ago. So all these variables matter less if you stop too early. So if you stop 5 reps short, those high threshold fibers that I mentioned will never fully engage. Okay. If we're not getting to the point where our muscles are almost fatigued to failure, we're not recruiting the muscles enough to do what we need them to do. Um, I wonder if I can get this on my screen actually. Let me see if I can share this with you. Da, da, da. We are generally working to. This is where those slides would have come in handy, eh? Hey, Heather, sort it out. Can you see that? Yeah? Okay.
Yes.
Yes, brilliant. So the RPE is rate of, oh my God, my brain tonight. I've only known this since I was like 14 when I did GCSE PE. Rate of perceived exertion. So we can apply this to both cardiovascular work, which would have slightly different commentary on it, but this is how we would apply it to strength training. So it's the level that you should be working at. Okay, so if you think of 1 to 4 down at the bottom, very light to light effort. Okay, it might be those 2 kg dumbbells that you've been training with for the last 5 years before you joined Verizon Empower, and now you don't even know where they are. They're just a doorstop. And at the other end of the scale, we've got 10, which is could not do more reps or load. Like you absolutely cannot complete another rep. When we are working, we want to be working more in the 8 to 9 range, okay? When you're doing your training day to day, unless when would we not be working in this RPE, ladies? Anyone want to unmute and just shout out? Let me know.
Deload.
Deload, well done. I don't know who that was. Was it Fraser?
It was.
Guessed your name without being able to see your face. How good is that?
That's
Very
because I've been
impressed.
around for so
I'm
long.
impressed. I'm impressed with myself. I've only got 2 or 3 of you on my screen at the moment. Um, So yes, absolutely. So deload, we are probably going to work around here, like the 5 to 6 mark, okay? But when we are training day to day, if we and also if we are well, okay, if we are rested, if we've slept, if we're not coming off the back of illness, because then we would come back down here, 5, 6, 7, 6, 7. Sorry, I've got a 10-year-old. This is where we want to be between the 8 and 9 mark. So for those of you that have been in the program for a while, you would have been doing 2 reps max testing. Do not worry if this means nothing to you, it will do soon. On the last week of your training phases. But I want you to start thinking about this week by week. So yes, I don't want you I don't want you 2 rep max testing every week, but I still want you to be working towards this rate of perceived exertion. So you should be working every set that you go into with only like 2 absolutely forced reps in the tank. We call it leaving something in the tank, yeah? So working in the 8 to 9 more repetition. You could only do 1 or 2 more repetitions if you really had to push. That's what you should be working to. Okay. Any questions on this specifically on the RPE scale?
I have a question, Heather.
Yeah.
It's Neve.
Hi, Nate. I
What's
could guess that. Yeah, well, you have a strong accent. I could have guessed that one.
um I've been lurking in the background for a while while I was eating my dinner. 9.5 could not do more reps, but could do slightly more load. What's the difference here between reps and load then?
Sorry, where are you? What are you saying?
9.5 could not do more reps, but could do slightly more load. What's the difference between reps and load there?
So if you've, let me think. So could not do more reps, or could do slightly more load. I've never seen it written like this before. So that would mean
Sorry, put you on the spot.
no, you have no, because I normally look at the cardio one. It's the first time I've pulled up a strength one. Um, do slightly more load. So could not do more reps, but could do slightly more load. Do you know what, Neil? I'm going to come back to you on that because I've never seen it written like that before. Let my brain just
If
function.
I can't do any more reps, I certainly can't add any more weight.
Any more load? Could
Yeah.
not do more reps, but could do slightly more load. It almost doesn't make sense there, does it? Could not do more
Mm.
reps or load. Could not do more reps, but could do slightly more load. What could that? Yeah, I've never seen it written like that. I've always it's more just like don't that you couldn't do more reps, how many you've got left in the tank more so than about load itself. I'll come back to you on that one, Neve. Sorry to
Okay,
not have
thank
the
you.
answer.
Sorry.
But oh God, that's going to bug me now. Bear with me. Could not do more reps, but could do slightly more load. If you can't do more reps, if you've got 10 kg, you can't do more reps, but you could do slightly more load. But if you have more load, if you
Could
have more
it
load,
be
would you you wouldn't be able to do the same number of reps? Or
would
you
it
could
be
do slightly more road.
dropping the
So
weight
you
and
could do slightly, but then that wouldn't make sense to a specific exercise. So it could mean that you could do heavier weights for less reps, but then that wouldn't make sense if you were in the middle of a training set, right? Mm. Yeah, let me come back to you on that one. I'm going to have a look at that.
okay, thank you.
No, really good question. Thank you for
Curious.
spotting that, Neve. I could show you the one that I normally look at. So hang on a second. Let me see if I can find that. Can I just share a screenshot? I'm not sure I can I? What I might do is I can drop the screenshot of the cardio one into the group so you guys can see that as well. Hang on one second. Let me see if I can get that up. RPE chart. So this is what we would normally see. That's me trying to find something that I've not used before as a resource. And then give me one sec. Let me see if I can share this. This is the chart that I normally look at. Okay, can you see this one, ladies? The bright colors. You see
Yeah.
that? So this is where we normally, so RPE scale, this is movement and activity in general. But clever me trying to find a strength specific one that I hadn't actually read properly. So apologies. But this is your RPE. So when we are talking about your sessions in general, when we're talking about walking, when we're talking about doing your cardio, it's a similar scale. But obviously, here you're talking about, some of you had heard me talking about when you're doing your walks for steps, not just dawdling and like picking up numbers. We want to walk with intention. I talk about quite a lot. We want to be walking to that point when this sort of 7 to 8 here. So borderline uncomfortable, short of breath, but can speak a sentence. And this is the chart that I would normally use, but I didn't think it was relevant to strength training. So I pulled up one that I've not looked at for, and it didn't make sense. But yes, so this is a general RPE scale. This is the most commonly used one, the Borg scale. And the strength one, I'm going to have another look at and come back to you. But thanks for asking that, Neve. Thank you, thank you, thank you. Right, let's go back to where was I? Reps. Okay. Um, I've lost my notes now. Right, so any other questions around RPE? Does everyone understand where they need to be? Yes, yes, yes. Okay. Right. Let's now talk about, sorry, I know I'm talking a bit long tonight, sorry. Oh no, we've only got this one little bit left, so we are all good. We are all good. Um, Fatigue versus stimulus, okay, and recovery. So fatigue is not stimulus, okay? You can be exhausted without creating high mechanical tension. So just because you walk out of the gym sweating and knackered doesn't mean that you have put your muscles under the right amount of stress. A perfect example of this would be like a body pump class where, and I was going to say I'm not anti-body pump, but some of you might think otherwise. It's not that I am anti-body pump as a whole, it's that I'm anti-body pump if that is your only source of strength training because you are going to come out of a body pump class sweating and exhausted, but you will not have created the right level of mechanical tension for your muscles for them to tear and repair in the way that I was explaining. So our goal is always going to be maximum stimulus with good form and manageable fatigue. So this is called optimizing the stimulus to fatigue ratio. We want to sit in that nice zone where the stimulus is at the right level and the fatigue is at the right level too. And in menopause, we also deal with anabolic resistance. And our muscle protein synthesis becomes slightly less responsive with age because of this. So we need sufficient stimulus, we need adequate protein. We cannot chronically undereat and build muscle. We just can't. We need sleep and recovery. They matter more than ever. And training hard while under fueling in any way is just going to blunt your adaptation. So we must train as intelligently as we can and take into account everything that I've covered. And I do think I need to put this probably into a slideshow that I can send and probably just host in the on-demand section. I think that'd probably be quite useful rather than just having it as a video. Um, so what I want you to do this week, similar to what we do with the 2 rep max, but I want you to apply that without going 2 reps. I want you to apply that sort of rate of procedure exertion, the 8 to 9, to your training this week. If you are more than a week into your training, if you are very new to the program, if you're week 1 or maybe even week 2, I don't want you to start absolutely rinsing it and trying to get to that 8 to 9 on every reps that you're doing. But those of you that have been here more than 2 weeks, I want you to really focus on this week. I want you to focus on the effort and exertion that you are experiencing when you train. I want you to rest properly. I want you to look at full range of motion with all of your lifts, not just 1 or 2, all of them. Send form videos to me and Coach Natalie. And I want you to control the tempo of your movements. And just ask yourself when you're training, could I genuinely have done more reps? Okay. How many could I genuinely have done? If it's, oh, maybe I could have actually done 4, 5, 6 more, you are not in the right zone. We're not here to complete and tick off workouts. Okay, that's not why we're training. And I know almost all of you know that because I see you celebrating your PBs and I love that when you share them in the group as well. So I know that you are pushing, but even with PBs, does it actually mean that we are working to an 8 to 9 RPE? I mean, I can put my hand up and say that I know that, well, I probably 70% of my lift I'm working 8 to 9 RPE. But I want you to apply that to everything. Okay, I don't want you to just be ticking boxes over the rest of this phase. So really with our training, I want you to remember that you're here to recruit muscle fibers, okay? I want you to really think about this when you're training this week. I want you to create as much tension as you can with your muscles. I want you to recover well, and most importantly, I want you to progress. And I want you to make this phase the best phase that you've had inside Rise and Empower, because you're going to put all of these things together this week and continue that over the next, where are we? I think this is week 3 coming up, isn't it? 3, 4, 5. So you've got 3 more weeks on the lifts that you're currently on. I don't want you to wait until week 5 this time to show me what you're made of. I don't want you to wait until week 5 to really focus on what those lifts feel like. I want you to focus on them from tomorrow, the next time you step foot in the gym, whether, well, some of you might be tonight. But yes, I think that probably covers everything that I wanted to cover. I have got some other notes, but I'm not going to go into it because what the time is.